righty, let's get going here. We have a lot of information. We're going to talk about a lot of things that will help you consider your next plan with your real estate, either whether you're building wealth or whether you want to transfer wealth. Okay? Backtrack, wrong way. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about the current market. What does it look like? What do we think is going to show up in the next near future? Building wealth and transferring wealth. We're going to talk about removing the burden of investment properties. For those of you who have some that maybe are in a phase of life where you really don't want to manage it anymore, there are options for you. Eliminating family disputes. Has anybody heard of a family who fought over real estate after mom and dad died? No? Yeah, almost all of us have probably heard one, right? Minimizing capital gains taxes. We're going to talk about that. Tips on building a real estate plan. And then 1031 exchange and a DST, a Delaware Statutory Trust. That is also a great solution for some folks. So what does the market look like? This is data from the Honolulu Board of Realtors. As you can see, December was the first month in, I would say, over a number of years, I would think. I think it was probably about 10 or 11 years, that the median sale prices came down. First month ever in that long of a period. Right, I'm going to show you a chart of what that looks like. Closed sale, prices only went down 0.5 point, but this is the beginning of the shift of the market. Okay, that's what happens, and I'm going to show you why you're going to understand what we're talking about. Only 202 sales, which means it's a really low number of transactions. Almost half of the sales are gone. Almost half of the sales are gone, right? And the days on the market went up 127%. There was a time earlier this year that you put it on the market and it was gone before it even showed up. It went that fast. We had listings that had 42 offers on them. And we got over $250,000 over the list price. That's how crazy it was. That's changed. That's changed. What do we see in the condo market? We see some of it going up a little bit, but that's going to change as well. Closed sales are down and days on the market went up 61.5%. This is indications of what's happening to the market. Now, here's the thing that you want to know. While it says December it went down, know that that agreement to buy that property was about a month to 2 months ago. That's old data. See, we saw this happening in September and October, how we saw the shift in the market. It won't show up in data in the newspaper until 2 months later. So we knew this was happening. People were either listening to us and they sold their house, or they weren't listening to us and, yeah, are still sitting in the market. Now, this is what's happened since 1978. Imagine back in, 87. Back in 1987, when the Japanese came in, look at the growth in here. Do I have a pointer or anything? Is there a pointer? And what happened after that peak? We took a bit of a drop, right? It leveled off. It took even a further drop. And from 2000 to 2007, up until that point, we saw the largest creation of wealth, right? That's about 7 years, okay? Cycles typically will go in about 7 to 10 years, right? That cycle is 7 years. Look what happened here from 2009 to now. That's 13 years of growth. You cannot sustain growth that long in real estate values that long. It doesn't exist. Well, it did because we had a crisis. And you have a clicker? You have a pointer? Oh, thanks. Thanks. But this growth here was an artificial growth because of COVID. The government decided to print money and give it to people. They decided to bring the rates down, basically giving them money, right? And then what happened after the peak? We're going to start seeing this slide. Now, fortunately in Hawaii, the greatest drop, by the way, this time period of the drop in parts of America, Arizona, Florida, Texas, parts of Nevada, they lost 40, 50, even 60% of values. We lost 7%. My point in making that is, you know, economists have said, Carl Bonham, one of the chief economists in Hawaii, said, Hawaii has good DNA. Hawaii has good DNA. And what that means is we have a low supply and a steady demand. So we're not going to drop through the roof like other states will. right? Because we have a limited supply. Anytime supply is low, values could even continue rising for a little bit. What we do know historically, after every peak, we know what happens. Well, December, we saw the first drop in printed information, but we felt it in October. We knew it was happening because we carry about 6 to 8 listings at any one week. And so we have the pulse on the market. All of a sudden, 1 week, it just shut off. When the rates went up, buyers didn't show up, right? It sat up for a while. And that was a concern for many sellers, right? So this cycle is likely going to happen again. Now, how far will it drop? I can't tell you. Will it adjust? Yes. Yes, it likely will. Why? Because the interest rates are going to continue rising. The federal government wants to limit inflation. Right now, it's too high. We went from 9 to 7%. The rising interest rates have helped bring down inflation, but it's not stopping it. The key factor of bringing down inflation is real estate. It's the largest item people buy in America. And how do they stop that? Keep increasing interest rates. So the government's going to do that over the next 2 quarters at a minimum. They think it might level off in maybe 5 or 6% later this year, early of next. Okay, but it'll eventually level off. But for now, we're going to see a continuing rise in interest rates. They've already stated that in writing. The government feds are going to increase interest rates, and that will impact buyers and sellers. Right? Oh, wrong one. This is what's happened to mortgage interest rates. Anybody remember this time period? 18%. People still bought homes, by the way. They still bought homes. Well, what happened? We went to as low as, we had a client at 2.45 was the lowest I've seen. That's like free money, right? You can't get money that cheap. What's happened? Look at this spike. And they're going to keep moving this up until inflation slows down. They have to. That's their only tool against inflation, right? And so it's pretty simple and clear to us. We saw this happening. We were talking about this last year, what's going to happen, because we were following the market and we understand how this works. Here's the impact of interest rates. A 1% rise of interest rate, let's just say it rises just from 6% to 7%. And you want to keep the payments the same because most people buy homes based on affordability on a monthly basis, right? They can no longer buy an $800,000 place. They can only buy a $720,000 place, which means they lost 10% of buying power. That's huge. And that's why it's slowing down the market. And that's why some homes are sitting a little longer now, right? What we're telling sellers, if you're thinking of selling, either hold on your property for probably 5 to 10 years or get rid of it as soon as you can. Because this is going to keep going. And this is the impact that you're going to see to buyers. And when that hurts buyers, guess what? It hurts sellers too, right? Because the buyer can't buy as much anymore. They're not qualified to buy as much. If the guy says, well, I'm willing to buy at the same price, he's paying 11% more. He's paying $500 more, $526 more today than maybe 2 weeks ago because the rates have moved so fast. It can be that significant. We were fortunate. We bought a place, our son bought a place actually, we helped him. A condo, this was in, when was that? March? And we were upset that we paid 4.2 because I wanted 3.5. And I was upset at 4.2. Now, I'm pretty happy, right? Pretty happy. Why? Because we pulled the trigger then, right? So it makes a huge difference to buyers. Really huge difference. And what most people don't understand is the math behind it. And so we understand and we share this with buyers and sellers of how this is going to impact you. It's really important to know if you want to make good decisions. So basically speaking, in general terms, there's only 2 types of properties that most people would consider. One being a primary residence, something you live in. Another is an investment property, something you do not live in. Okay, so the primary residence, we see that it houses our family. We have a sense of enjoyment from it. So we don't think about money as much, right? Many of us have our homes paid off, right? So when you're selling a primary residence, know that if you've lived in it 2 out of the last 5 years, the government's going to give you $250,000 capital gains tax exemption. Husband and wife living in a property, $500,000. What does that really mean? If you bought it for $500,000 and you sold it for $1 million, you can take all $500,000 out tax-free. There is no other asset you own today that you can sell and liquidate and not pay capital gains tax. Ask your financial planner, he'll tell you. That's why when people are moving out of their homes, that's why they sell their home, because it doesn't make sense. Because if you hold on to that property for greater than 3 years and a day, which means you will not have 2 out of the last 5 years, this is all gone, and you're paying capital gains tax on that, which is going to be significant, anywhere from 20 to 30% on that gain. Basically throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars away. So if you're trying to build wealth, the number one enemy in building wealth, anybody know what that is? Number one enemy in building wealth? Taxes. It's taxes. So understanding how the government's created this tax structure, it matters. Wouldn't you agree? It matters. Because some people have made poor decisions because they were not educated well enough to know how you can benefit from the laws that are in place today. That's in place today. I don't know what it's going to look like in the next administration. Because every single year, every new administration, that's on the cutting block. Fortunately, nothing got cut. But it's always there. Because the government wants money. Where are they going to get it? From people who gain, right? Because they tax everything else except real estate so far. Now, if you do not live in the property, it's called an investment property, subject to state and federal capital gains taxes. And you really want to see that property as an investment, like a stock or a bond that you own, because you don't live there. Some people get a little confused. They have an emotional attachment to an investment property where I'm not sure if the emotional attachment to an investment property really serves you well in the way you make decisions, right? Talking about decisions, there's only 2 types of decisions people make. You're either going to make an emotional decision or you're going to make a financial decision. And guess what? You get to choose. It's your choice. Some people say, well, no, I want to hold on to this property because my mom gave it to me and she wanted our family to have it. But yet it's not generating any money. And the guy doesn't live there. I said, do you think your mom would want you to have an asset that's a negative asset that you pay into? Or do you think she'd want the best situation for you? She said, well, no, she'd want the best for me. So well, what? You either rent it and generate money for it, or you liquidate it and you put it in something that's going to generate money for you. Either way, the legacy is only good for what it's realized, if you think about it. Or you're going to make an emotional decision. Oh, I grew up in the house, so I'm going to stay there. I'm going to live there. And so guess what? You get to make the choice. It's your choice. We're not the judge of that. Our point is making sure the clarity is that you understand how you're making the decision and really ask the question, what's best for you? Right. So what we also do is a current portfolio analysis on their home and their investment properties. The way we do that is we first just sit down with our clients and, try to figure out, does a home work for you? Can you see yourself living here, right? If the answer is no, then you probably should look at a different solution, right? The other question you want to ask yourself, because we work with a lot of seniors, is what do you think your future needs are going to need? Like if you have stairs, if you have a bad leg or a bad hip, at some point that's going to be problematic, right? If a lot of people where there's a widow and one person is gone, now it's kind of problematic staying home alone. All these things will come into play. We've been doing this for 17 years and we're almost like a case manager or consultant, or we've become a real estate planner. And the reason why is we ask the question to help somebody self-discover what the future is going to look like. See, because some people will look into the past and say, I'm okay. Oh, I play tennis. When was the last time you played tennis? Oh, 10 years ago. He doesn't play tennis. In his mind he is, right? Or I'm okay today. I'm still walking. But when I get older, there's going to be self-driving cars and I'll be okay. Well, but what is the future going to look like, right? And so what we suggest is you can either look in the past, you can look currently at the present, or you can look in the future. What perspective will serve you best? And almost everybody eventually will say, looking into the future. What do I need to be ready for in 5 or 10 years, right? What do I need to do? How many, I say to people my age or older, how many good summers do you have left? Think about that. How many good summers? Because the guy says, well, don't worry, when I get older, I'm going to have these automatic cars and I'm going to have things doing for you. Yeah, so you're planning for bad to show up. How about we plan for good today? What matters for you today? Because most folks, a lot of them that we talk to, money is not their problem. They think it's their problem. It's not their problem. It's how they see using the money. Because we believe money is good for the good it does. What good do you want it to do? What good do you want it to do? And who do you want to bless while you're alive? So these are just questions that we ask our folks. What should we do with the house? In investment properties, we do this thing called an asset performance test where you measure that asset as it is measured against any other asset that you could own, right? And so we can show you how the cash flow it works, cash flow analysis, and how its return on its asset, a cap rate analysis works, right? It's math. It's simple math. We can explain that to you. All we need is your income and your expenses, and it's pretty easy to share with you, right? And it helps people make better decisions. You know, once you see the reality, not what you think is happening, what really is happening really matters. And then we talk about generational wealth building, leaving a legacy and transferring wealth. Many of our clients are in that phase of life. They're starting to think through this. When I'm gone, what do I want the world to look like for my heirs, for my kids, my grandkids, the people that I love? And how do I prevent a family dispute, right? Because that happens way too much. Yeah. We'll talk about current and future goals, you know, because like this chart says is you can't divide real estate. People will tell me, oh, don't worry, I'll just leave it for my kids. How's that going to work out? You're assuming they're going to be in agreement. And they could be in agreement. My question is, what if they're not? That's when bad shows up, right? And, you know, what are your current needs today? Like, what are your housing needs? What are your financial needs? What is your social needs? What are your needs today? And that's what's going to happen when you're gone, right? What's going to happen? What's going to happen to your wealth? All the work that you put into building wealth in real estate and otherwise, what's going to happen to that? Then the next question about the future is, what's the best timing for you, right? What's the best timing for you either to move to another place that's more appropriate, to maybe liquidate and do something else with an asset that maybe is a burden? And the last question is, okay, where do I start? Once I think through this, how do I get started? And so these are conversations that we have with our clients. We're not here to tell anybody what to do. We never do that. But what we do is we ask you really good questions that'll force you to think through what matters to you. Because that's all that matters, is what matters to you, not what matters to us, right? And so we're gonna pull that out of folks, and we help you self-discover the best path for you along the way. And then we'll do a current market analysis. Well, you know, we analyze data very closely. Some people said to us, well, no, the house down the street sold last year at this price, and then mine should be worth more. That's pretty common conversation, right? And then so what we look at is okay, what's the date of that agreement? The date of that agreement is the most important date, because not the closing date, it's the date of the agreement, because that's where the price was determined. How was the price determined? It impacted by interest rate. So what was the interest rate at that date? And you add 1%, is it 11% you lose the buying power? Then you see what the real world looks like. And then you learn to adjust your perception of value, because you have to accept the fact that interest rates will impact values. The buyer's ability to buy, his leverage is the interest rate. His buyer's ability to buy will impact what you sell yours at. What you sell yours at. We do an equity analysis as well. So people say, okay, what do I get at the end of the day? When everything is done, give me a number, right? And that's important to a lot of folks. And so we do that in advance. You know, based on the sale price, the cost of selling, minus your loan balance, we give you a number that if we sold at this is what you're going to put in your bank, right? This is what you're going to show up with, right? Because some people are planning their future based on that number. And then we help with a tax liability assessment. Now, we are not a CPA. We're not accountants. We're not pretending to know that. I'm not that smart. We strongly recommend that every client that we have talked to, before you sell, know what your capital gains tax liability is. And we're going to ask you to give us that number before we get started. It's homework that matters to you. See, for most realtors don't ask that question. Why? Because it doesn't impact the realtor. What do we care, right? But we do care because that's who we are. We care about you as a person, not just a transaction, right? And so we want to know, we want you to know what the tax liability is and that you're okay with it. I don't want to help you sell a property and everyone cheer and say, yeah, that was great. And then you find out later, how come I got to pay all this tax? That means I didn't do my job. We have to educate you. And we're going to do that. If you don't have a CPA, we'll put you in touch with one. We need to know what this number is because you're going to have to pay it, right? My dad's closing on his place. We helped him sell his place. My mom and dad were married for a long time. How long? And my dad's 94 now. And last year we moved my mom and dad into the plaza. Why? Because my mom kept falling down and my dad couldn't pick her up. So we moved her in there. Unfortunately, a number of months later, she passed away. But now my dad is in a safe place and he doesn't have to worry about clearing out his house by himself. It's done. And he already had a safety net and a security and support system there when mom passed away. And that's one of the conversations we have with folks who are older. You say, it's easier to move from your home together than by yourself. You think about what the surviving spouse has to go through moving by yourself. Having to move your deceased spouse's stuff by yourself. Think of the emotion around that, right? And we strongly suggest for people to move it together while they're healthy, while they can, while you're making your decisions on your own terms. Because at some point, our mental facilities are going to depreciate quite a bit, and we won't be making decisions on our own. Your family will be making decisions for you. And that's a sad situation, because I've seen both. I've seen the reactive person that stays in their house too long, and something bad shows up, or somebody passes away, and they have to deal with that. And then I see the proactive people that do it together. It's part of the journey. Like when you went to college, when you got married, and you had all your anniversary, you did these things together. It's so much easier together. That's so much easier. And I've seen both ways. And it's hard. I got to tell you, it's really, really hard by yourself. It's sad when we have to witness that and be part of that solution, but we have been. But how does that go with tax? I don't know. Make sure you understand your tax liability, because that's really important. So your cost basis is really important. You have to know what that is. Sometimes it gets tricky, sometimes it's easy. What you need to know that there's two types of cost basis. There's a step up in cost basis where it passes on to your heirs upon your demise. When you pass away, your kids get it at a stepped up cost basis, zero capital gains tax. So the reason why this is important is we suggest you keep your property in a trust until you pass away. Once you add your child to the trust, you made him responsible for all your capital gain when you die. And there are people in this town that recommend you do that for Medicaid. Yeah, for Medicaid. And unfortunately, it creates a problem. Yeah, it creates a tax burden, right? So if my parents put my name on their property, they bought it for like $40,000, we sold it for almost $1 million. By the time we sell that, I'm responsible for all that gain. That's a burden that you don't want, right? So know that this is one way that you can increase generational wealth, keep it in your name, you get a step up in cost basis, zero capital gains tax. Zero capital gains tax. Or when somebody passes on while they're alive, somebody passed on, mom passed on the property while she's alive, the child gets it at this value, he's got to pay all the capital gain from that. That's significant. Yeah, and it's painful to see. Okay. So if you like your kids, keep it in your name. If you don't like your kids, keep it in your name. I've seen people, no, it's a really sad story. This lady wanted to sell her property. She forgot that she went downtown one day, she signed some papers. See, she came to one of our seminars. She said, I'm so excited to go to this retirement community. She got accepted and all. It was in Ilima and Lejano back then. It was brand new. She was excited. She said, hey, Dan, can you come over and help me sell my house? I go to her, I say, who are these people? Oh, this is my son and my daughter-in-law and my other son. I said, there's 3 people that own the property. None of them are you. I'm so sorry, but until they transfer it back to your name, you can't sell it. Her kids trapped mom in her own house. That was so painful to see. Dad had dementia. Mom was taking care of dad. Mom was thinking she'll have a life and freedom moving in so somebody else can take care of him. She never sold it. They ended up dying in the house because somebody did something they shouldn't have done. They didn't have a plan that was serving them well, right? Somebody else had a plan to make money on them, right? And that's really, really hard for us to swallow, but we see all kinds of stuff. I mean, we've helped going on with 1,400 clients that we're selling. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of transactions. We've seen everything under the sun. Capital gains tax assessment, we can help you, give you a rough idea, but we're always going to ask you to make sure you report to us what your CPA says. We'll give you a rough idea. We know how to do that. We'll do a capital gains tax assessment analysis for you, and we'll give you a rough idea of what that's going to look like. We're not going to be that far off, but at least you'll know ahead of time. Okay. Why do we do that? Because it matters to you. Why do most realtors never do this? And they don't even know how to do this? Because it doesn't impact them. It doesn't impact how much money they make. What you're going to find by working with us is we do a lot of things that won't matter to us, but matter to you greatly. Matter to you greatly. Because you're going to have to make good decisions based on information. And if you don't get good information, you might make not so good decisions. This is what in every state, so every state's a little different. You have federal capital gains taxes in state. There are a number of states with no capital gains tax. Hawaii, number 2 in the ranking. Woo, 11%. Take that to the, well, it's not the bank because you're paying the bank. California's at 13.3. Yeah, huge. On top of up to 20% in the federal side. So capital gains is a real thing, and we want our clients to know before you sell, what are you really going to have to be responsible for? The asset performance tab will help you make a wise decision on your investment property. We're going to look at a return on your investment. Again, we'll talk about we'll explain what a cap rate is. A cap rate is really simply how much net money do you get in your pocket relative to the value of the asset, right? That's what a capital gains tax. Cash on cash is how much money is coming in for my money. It's a little different, right? It could be the same if you don't have a mortgage, right? But if you have a mortgage, you need to know your cash on cash. Right? Renovation and repair analysis. We've been doing this for, again, 17 years, helping clients fix up their homes. Now we do construction management consulting, where we help people fix up their homes. Anything and everything on a home we can help you do. We have contractors that can do anything in a home. We've been doing this so long. What a lot of people start doing is they start doing renovations, and sometimes they're spending money where they're not going to make money out of it. So I say to you, if you're thinking of doing something on your home, we should probably look at it first, and we'll tell you if it's worth it or not. Because sometimes it's not worth it. Why would you spend 10 grand if you're not going to get more than 10 grand back? Right? Why break even? That doesn't make sense, right? So, and we can help you with that. We even do construction management services. We do that for a fee for non-clients. For our clients, we don't charge, right? So if We had a couple clients that did, actually two or three this year. They spent over $150,000 to $180,000 to gut an entire house. Kitchens, bath, paint, flooring, electrical fixtures, plumbing fixtures, $150,000 in a 2-story house. And that made him about $300,000 a month. Why? Because that's what the buyers wanted in that market. It was depends on the market, depends on where you're located, depends on the competition. A lot depends on the environment you're in, but also what do we think the buyer's going to do? What kind of buyer are we trying to attract, right? All these things come into play. So what we do is we just define a scope of work, we put a schedule to it, we determine the cost, and then what we're going to do is say, if you did nothing, you could get this amount of money. And ARV is after repair value. After you spend this money, here's what we think you're going to get. And we're going to be very honest with you. We're going to tell you, sometimes we tell our clients, honestly, you can spend the money, but I can't promise you're getting much more money back. And you're going to spend all this time, money, and effort, and you may not get the money back. So I'm not sure. It's up to you. Some clients say, I want to do it anyways because they have this pride that they want to make sure their house looks good. Okay, that's good. That's your emotional decision. You can make that decision. We will help you with the financial decision. Help you understand, what do we think will happen if you did this kind of work, right? And if you look through the listings that we have, you're going to see all the different properties. Some of them were really, really nice because we repaired them. We spend money and helped our client do that. And they got a really good return on it. Here's some examples of kitchens and bathrooms. We walked into this old house, redwood. Look at this kitchen now. Beautiful, right? You walk in, it's open kitchen. You don't, all this wall's gone, the ugly carpet, the redwood. It looks like a new modern home. Today's buyer, the younger buyers, they don't want to buy grandma's house. They really don't, right? They love grandma, but they don't want to live in her house, right? They want what's nice. They like kakako, this luxury, sexy looking new stuff, right? And that's the buyer. That you have to put your eyes in the mind of the buyer, not your eyes, right? Right. And then this one here, we actually took out the wall. There was a wall here. It made no sense. We took the wall out. Now it opened up the whole bath. Been in this beautiful walk-in shower because today's world, we don't use tubs. Why? Because they want to be efficient. People want to come and go and move quickly, right? It's the world we live in today is a little different. Tubs are good for families. They'll only want one though. They don't want it in the master. It's humbug getting over the ledge. You want it efficient. So we know what buyers want. We sell enough properties to know what they are looking for, what they like. And so they hand us the key and said, do this. They didn't pick anything. We picked everything. The fixtures, the countertops, the cabinets, the toilet, all of this was selected by us. They didn't do anything. They just were happy that we did it. Another thing that's important, so what we're finding is, we're finding the older generation trying to bless their kids, right? And sometimes the grandkids. But the kids don't really realize how time can serve them well over time. And this is an example. Okay, the person pays $22.71 a month, either renting or $22.71 a month for buying. They spend the same amount of money every single month. The difference is they got blessed with $100,000 from grandma. Look what happens over time. In 30 years, the guy who's renting, how much equity does he have? Oh yeah, that's zero. This guy, he has $1.62 million. He spent the same amount of money every single month. Young people don't understand that time can be your friend. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. I'm serious. That's when my son wanted to buy his place because he knows he understands math. This is just simple math. But there's a thing called compounding values. Every year it grows bigger and it grows exponentially. If you talk to Warren Buffett made most of his money after the age of 50. Why? Because it started building and compounding so greatly after that age. And that's what it looks like. That's what happens over time. You know, in the beginning, you know, this younger generation, they're microwave generation, right? They only look here. Well, I don't get it back in 2 months. It's not worth putting money into it. So I don't get it back in 3. Look what happens over time. Most of the wealth is built here. Isn't that crazy? For those of you who had 529s for your kids, you put money in every month. We did that when we were younger. Our kids went to school. Their college was free. We put $500 a month in our account. All 3 kids were free because we planned for it. And this is what we teach younger generation. They don't understand it, right? And there's so many younger generations that are renting today, and they don't know what the future is going to look like, and they don't realize that they're missing the boat. Because this is real. This is math. Right? It's simple. Just not easy. And then generational wealth building. You know, we teach the next generation how to build wealth, partly through the current portfolio analysis. We have many clients with many properties. We sit down and we analyze every property. We tell you which properties are good, which properties are not good, based on how the math shows up. You know, if your return is good, we're going to tell you don't sell it. We're a realtor. It doesn't benefit us to tell you that, but we're going to tell you that. Because I'm going to tell you, if you sell it, I can't replace that money. But most of the time, we're showing people they're getting a 1 or 2% return, and I can get them a 4% return without them spending any more money. If I could double your money today, would you? Everybody says yes, right? And so the only way to start that is understanding and analyzing. We analyze the current portfolio. We're going to create a plan with the end in mind. Like, at the end of the day, what do you want the world to look like? And that's what we started with, the end in mind. And then we understand the family goals and needs, right? Is there anybody you want to bless, anybody who needs help, right? That you could do today versus after you die, right? Because the money that they need today, if they don't get it today, think of the next 10 or 20 years until you pass away. All that, you've basically robbed them of enjoyment, or what you could have given them earlier or use of earlier, right? Just saying, there's ways that you can think this a little differently. How can you help them, right? So what are the steps? You know, who can help you? And when should I do these things? These all come through the conversation with us as we ask you deeper questions on what matters most to you, what you have. Our job is to provide different options for you to see what route you want to take. It's funny, the other day we sat in the front room, Shane was with me. A guy says, I got these 4 properties. He says, oh, I hate this property in Pupukea. He lives in town. He goes to Pupukea 3 times a week. He's got over an acre of yard he's got to mow, right? And so he's got to be, 73, right? He's 73. Oh, I go there, well, I want to build this other house on my lot. I said, wait, hang on a second. So let me ask you a question. At the end of the day, what is your goal? Oh, I don't want to live in Hawaii. I want to live in Nevada. So what's in your way from living in Nevada? Well, I got to build this thing. Why are you building that for? Oh, he goes, yeah, that's a good question. Why am I building that for? It was like, what should I do? So I don't know. What should you do? He says, what do you want to do? He says, I want to live in Nevada. So what's in your way? I guess nothing. Oh, you know, it helps you think through the process of really what matters most. And I asked him that question. He's 73. He said, how's your health? Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Well, this hurts and that hurts, and everything starts coming out, right? And so, and he starts talking about, well, when I have problems, when bad shows up, this is how I'm going to deal with bad. And I said, well, why are you planning for bad? Why aren't you planning for good? Because you can do good today. Because we don't know how many good summers we have left. We really don't. And I asked myself that question too. That's why I live the life that I live. I travel all over the place. Why? Because I don't know how long I can surf. I'm going to be 60 this year. I surf and I snowboard, and I'm going to do it every day until I can. Because I don't know. We never know what that's going to look like. And we tell our team, create a life worth living. Really. You've done so good with everything you have. You deserve to create a life worth living for you. And then you think about what's left for your kids, because they're adults, most of them, right? So what's a 1031 exchange? It allows investors to defer your capital gains taxes when you purchase something of like kind. Again, please see your tax advisor for your consequence on that. We're not providing any tax or legal advice, but this is an overview of what we know. So what is a like-kind? Like-kind is any one of these things. See, some people think, well, if I sell a house, I got to buy a house. That's not true. It has to be real estate in the United States or any U.S. territory. Okay. So you could sell a theater and buy an apartment building. You could sell a vacant lot and buy a shopping center. Or you can sell a condo and buy a DST, a Delaware Statutory Trust. We'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. So it's in anywhere in the U.S. territory except for Puerto Rico. I'm not sure why, but yeah. You have to designate up to 3 replacement properties. You don't have to. You can. You want to designate a replacement property, you must do it within 45 days of the sale of the relinquished property, right? Of the sale of the relinquished property. And you have to close on that replacement property within 180 days. Most people see this and they say, Dan, that's not comfortable. I don't want to do this. It's too stressful for me. I get it. I get it. I understand why you feel that way. But let me tell you that we've done over 250 of these. We've never failed. Never failed. And there's a reason why. Because of this model here. So what we do is we're highly aggressive. Once somebody says, I want to do a 1031 exchange, while we're getting their house ready for sale, we're going to start searching for your replacement property. We're not going to wait till over here to find your replacement. We want to find it here. Why? Because once we get into escrow with the one you're selling, we want to start writing offers for the one you want to buy. What does that mean? Now you have 90 days to identify a replacement property. That's 3 months. That's why we never fail. 3 months is more than enough time. Especially since we shop in advance to find something. Sometimes, because the inventory is low, sometimes people, we had a guy that lived in Wahiawa, had a house in his mom's house, became an investment property in Kaneohe. So he'd drive every week, same thing, to do his yard. And he said, Dan, I'm tired. This is old. I don't need this. And so he did a 1031. But he says to me, well, here's what I want. So we talked about his replacement property. He goes, here's what I want. I want this Mililani Mauka house. I always dreamed of having a Mililani Mauka house. So I want one in Mililani Mauka. And back then there was nothing available. So what do? We sent a mailer out to the homes that fit his criteria. It was what, four bedroom or more, newer home in Mililani Mauka. And he wanted it on the top side of Mauka. So not just all of Mauka, it's just a small segment of Mauka. That's a miracle, right? Well, miracles show up. I believe in miracles. So we sent a mailer out, and then one showed up, and he bought that. It can be done. We've done this mailer thing, and we've flushed out opportunities for our clients, I would say about 10 times, maybe 12 times over the last years, because we have a very targeted letter that works and gets people to call us, right? And it works. So that's why we haven't failed. Now, keep in mind, you have also 180 days to close on that. That's normally not the problem. The biggest problem is 45 days, but that's never been our problem because we're already looking over here, and usually we're in escrow before you even need to identify. Because once this closes, you can close on your replacement property, right? And that's typically what we're doing. And so this model works. We started a national training program. I'm part of Keller Williams. So I'm now a national trainer. I train this around the country to hundreds of agents that don't know how to do this, that have failed 1031 exchanges. And now we're building a large network around the country. A DST, a Delaware Statutory Trust, is a good option as a safety net for you. You must be an accredited investor. What does that look like? I think it's 2 million or more of assets, right? An X number of income. Yeah, it has to be approved by the IRS. It is approved by the IRS for a 1031 exchange, so no capital gains taxes. You're not going to have any property management issues because you have somebody already managing it. It yields you close to 4%. It used to be 5%, but since COVID, the net came down. But they're close to 4%. We did this, Julie and I did this right when COVID started. We had a condo that I was concerned that I don't know how long COVID would last, and I don't know how long the shutdown would last. So we were concerned that if this guy loses his job, I might have no income. So I said, let's go sell it. We sold it. We did a Delaware statutory trust. So we own one. I get 4.49% return on my money. Where when at my condo in University Alawai Skyrise Plaza was more closer to 2.9%, I'm getting 4.9%, 4.49%. So am I happy? Absolutely. I don't have to worry about the tenant. I make more money. I have no hassles. I have no tax because I don't have a 1031 exchange. I did a 1031 exchange. And there's no upfront cost to this, right? There's no hassle. And there's no loan involved as well. If you have a mortgage on your property, know that if you do a 1031 exchange, you have to replace the debt. Because you have to buy equal or greater than. So let's say you had $1 million property, you had a $500,000 mortgage. Whatever you buy $1 million property to make sure you don't pay capital gains taxes, you still got debt you got to replace, or you got to come up with the money. The DST has a 50% loan to value product and allows them, they're willing to take your half of the money and give you equity on that half. But it'll satisfy the 1031 exchange rule, right? And that's what we're doing for folks. We're actually helping people take money out of their property before you sell it, so you get tax-free money, right? Maybe we should, can we bring that, roll that chart over? That rolling chart, I think that'd be cool. Let me see if I can. So the benefits, and I'll explain this model to you in a minute. It defers capital gains taxes. So long-term capital gain tax is 11% for Hawaii, up to 20% for the federal government. If your adjusted gross income is greater than $400,000, add another 3.8% for Medicaid. You have to apply all the proceeds to the replacement property. You can exchange for multiple properties. You can sell one and buy multiple, or you can sell multiple and buy one. We've done that. We've sold 5 properties in 4 states to buy 1 condo. We've done that. Don't do that to me. That's stressful. Because everything is timed by the first sale. Yeah, that's really stressful. And it's a great estate planning tool, right? To help your kids out and generate more money. So is it a good time to do a 1031 exchange? Yes, if you have a significant amount of equity. See, we had a guy come to me and say, I want to do a 1031 exchange. When I looked at his cost basis and what he was going to get, he didn't have much equity. I said, it doesn't make sense to do that. You might as well just sell it. And there's no tax involved. Like 10 grand, it's not much, right? It's not worth it. It may not be worth it. If you want to upgrade or increase your portfolio, if you want to relocate the asset, we have a lot of clients that have assets on the mainland, they want to bring it back home, or they have an asset here that they want to bless their kids that live on the mainland now. We've done that too, many times. It just depends on where you are, because we have contacts. Remember, I trained a couple of hundred agents around the country. These are the top agents in the United States. And so we have them in every city. You want to help your family out with real estate, and you want to create a legacy with your property. And if you want to pull cash out of your investment property and do a 1031 exchange into a Delaware statutory trust, right? That is huge opportunity. So before we go into this, I think I'll need that now. Let me, sorry about that. I just need a marker. I want to give you an example of a simple way. There's many dozens of ways we've done this, but the simplest route to explain what I'm talking about. You have a $1 million, this is for easy numbers, right? $1 million house. Investment property. You don't live in this. It's an investment property, okay? It's all paid off. You have no debt, and you have no debt. No debt on the property, you have no debt. So before you sell, what if you took out $500,000 on a home equity line of credit? You can do that. The bank's going to give it to you, right? You apply for it before you sell the home, before you list it, but you don't touch the money before we close, okay? But this is all part of planning, okay? So you pull the money out, there's no tax on that. What other way can you get money out of your property without paying tax? There is none, unless it's your home that you live in. Because you're paying tax on dollar number one that you pull out and touch if you sell a property. This way, you get $500,000 out. Okay, so now you sell this. Okay, this isn't working so well. You sell this property for $1 million, right? You sell it for $1 million, but no, on this property that's $1 million, it equates to $500,000 of debt, which is this money, $500,000 of equity. You're selling this and you're buying a $1 million DST. That's built like this. It's built with debt. It's designed to have debt, right? You get paid, let's just use round numbers, 4% of this. What's that, $20,000 a year, okay? Let's say they hold it for 5 years. The cycle is typically 3 to 5 years that they hold the asset, but they plan to sell it. Why? Because they're gonna make money on this, and you're gonna get the money. You're gonna get the appreciation. So you get $20,000 a year, let's just say it's times 5 years, that's $100,000. Now keep in mind, you sold the property, you have this in your bank, you can do anything you want with this. You can go buy another house, you can put it anywhere you want to bless your kids, you can do anything you want with this. It's your money, and there's no tax on that. It's a home equity line of credit. How many of you have a home equity line of credit? Anybody? Yeah, I think we've always had one. It's a blank checkbook. Right? Get a blank checkbook. It's fun. Trust me. It's really fun. Because then it gives you flexibility. Right? And you don't pull it out until you close. So once we close on this, the week before you pull it out, how much is that going to cost you? Almost nothing. It's almost free money. And you're not taxed on it. Okay? So now you own a $1 million DST with $500,000 of equity and $500,000 of debt. You don't care about the debt. Why? Because it's called non-recourse debt. You don't pay it back. There's no loan application. There's no mortgage on it. You don't pay it back. It's designed this way because they're putting their money into it. Now keep in mind, they're not paying you 4% on the million. They're only paying 4% on the $500,000, which is $20,000. You follow me? In 5 years, you got $100,000. So $500,000 of home equity line of credit. You got $100,000 every month for 5 years. Here's the best part about it. This $1 million asset, it's going to appreciate. See, when they do these things, when they buy these assets, they buy it with an exit strategy. They're buying it at the end in mind. Like I'm trying to train you all to plan with the end in mind. They buy it with the end in mind, meaning they know how much money they're going to make. They know how much money they're going to make every year because they have an escalator on rents. They know what their value is going to be at the end in 5 years when they sell it. Okay? What they're saying and what their history has been is they get, 4% return on your money. What's that? $400,000, right? Thanks. $400,000 at the end. Keep in mind, what did you put into this? You only put in $500,000. So you walk out with $900,000 when you only put in $500,000. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how your money can make you money. I'm proof of concept. We've been doing this for about 9 years now, almost 10, I think. It was the first time we did this for a client. I'm a little slow learner. I just did this last year for myself because I didn't believe it was true. I said, it's too good to be true, it must not be. And all my clients, I asked them the same thing. Did you get what they promised you? And 100% of them said, yes. And that's why I said, I think it's time for me to figure this out. I need to do that. And that's what we're doing now. Am I happy? Heck yeah. Heck yeah. I don't have a headache of an investment property. I get more money than I can make here. And eventually it'll appreciate. I'm going to get the appreciation right as well. Right? Just a solution. It's not for everybody. If you need to touch the money, then you're not the good candidate. If you feel that you have to see your property, this is not a good product for you. You're not going to see the product. I've never seen them. I have an address, I have a picture, never seen the property. What do I care? When you buy stock for Costco, do you ever go to every Costco? No. What do you care? It's all about the math, right? How much money? We teach people when you're building wealth, it should be your money working for you versus you work for your money. Once you get to a point in life where your money is making you money versus you work for your money, you've arrived. Okay. That's what life should be about. Do what you want, when you want, with who you want to do it with. Pretty simple, right? And that's my only wish for everyone, is that you all have a life worth living. And guess what? You get to decide what that looks like. You get to decide. Nobody else should decide what that looks like. You should decide what it looks like. And live your best life ever. Because we don't know when it's going to end. We just never know. And so I live a life with no regrets. And I suggest we all do. Because at the end of the day, in your deathbed, you don't want to say, oh, I wish I did this. Or I wish I did that. Too late already, right? Anyways, sorry, it's a little confusing. If you want more information, we can sit and talk, and we'll explain that in detail. So, why should you have a real estate plan? Because have you ever heard of a family fight after real estate after mom and dad died? Yeah, a lot of them do. Oh, thanks. So, the Family Feud Prevention Plan. Yeah, realtors don't do it. I'm going to now not sound like a realtor. Because we're going to talk about things about family dynamics. Understanding the needs of the family. Understanding the trust document. Creating a plan to pass on wealth, minimize taxes, alleviate property burdens, and minimize family disputes. Because when we open a conversation, we believe in the power of curiosity over judgment, and that a guided self-discovery can instill forward movement. And it's really that simple, right? Most people haven't considered things, but we've seen pretty much everything under the sun, and we'll help you understand what it could look like, depending on what you want to do. Here's a transferring worth and creating a legacy example. And this is a simple but complicated. Mom has $1 million property. Mom's a widow, okay? Mom has 4 kids, George, Lucy, Grant, and Ann. And everything's great. Everything's great. They get together every Christmas and they have parties, and then the grandkids all hang out and they all talk. So everything is great. Until real money hits the table. See, right now, mom owns all the properties. What happens when she dies? What does everybody think they deserve? Their fair share. And everybody's perspective of fair share is going to be different, right? It's going to be different. So what happens then? Well, the pilikia comes out. It gets to be a mess sometimes. Versus mom saying, you know what, I'm going to plan ahead. This $1 million asset, we're going to sell it, and we're going to do a 1031 exchange, and we're going to allow all of you kids, George, Lucy, Grant, Ann, the ability to predetermine your inheritance. Predetermine it. Why? Because I don't need it, and you're going to get it eventually, but I'll let you get it now while I'm alive. Right? How does that work? Well, you do a 1031 exchange, you sell that, and you buy 4 properties. The reason why this model has been so popular since we launched it around the country is because George, Lucy, Grant, and Ann don't live in the same area. George, Lucy, Grant, and Ann don't want mom's $1 million apartment building. What do they want? They want their own property. Where do they want it? Where their kids are, which is typically not in the same neighborhood. So what happens is mom sells it. She says, we're going to do a 1031 exchange. You all get to choose your share, fair share, which is 25% each, $250,000 of equity of any piece of real estate in America. You get to choose. What does that do to the family? Now you bring the family together, right? Now there's no fight because George is asking Lucy, did you buy the condo for your daughter? Right? And Grant's going to ask Anne, hey, what about that house on the corner that you wanted to buy? Did you get it? Because mom blessed all of them equally while she's alive. It stays in mom's name. When mom passes away, all of these properties go straight down to the kids tax-free. Tax-free. We had a situation where it wasn't Lucy that bought a place, it was Lucy's daughter that bought a place. So we sold a property up in Kapalam over here. It was a beat up, dilapidated, full of burden property that they didn't want anymore. Their granddaughter, I said to them, at the end of the day, what's your goal? Well, I'm going to give my money to my granddaughter. I said, well, would you like to bless her today while you're alive? Where does she live? Well, she's renting. So do you think it'd be helpful for her to own her place? Yeah, but she can't buy one. Well, if she could buy one, would she? She said, yes. We sold the property, it was about 700 something. She bought a condo for $900,000. She took the $700,000 as a down payment. She took her mortgage of $200,000. See, this granddaughter was a 2-year was a nurse. She had a good job. She had good credit. What does she not have? Down payment. Grandma got to bless her today and here's a beautiful part of that story. Every Sunday, they have dinner at the condo. She's living the life she wanted, but she didn't realize it could exist, where you can bless your kids while you're alive. My first question is, do you need the money from this property? Once somebody says no, then all these opportunities come up. Who do you want to bless? Right? Who do you think needs it most? And what happens to everybody else? How do you create equity and fairness, in your strategy to create a plan so that when you're gone, there's no fight? Right? So we talk about these things. We bring in the trust attorney, right? We bring in the accountant. We bring in the financial planner. We sit down and say, here's a plan. What do you guys think? And everybody surrounds that family and they say, that makes sense. No capital gains tax increases generational wealth, right? But the best part of it is the life that you create for another human being that you care about. That's the biggest thing for us, right? Who do you want to bless? Because many of our clients, they have the wealth, they have the assets. They could do it today, but they just don't know it's possible. When we unleash the possibilities that are available, then miracles happen. And it's really cool to watch. So 10 things that help you make sound decisions. Number 1, make sure you have a current market analysis, understanding the trends and what's happening in the market. 2, understand the interest rate chart and make sure you understand the impact of interest rates on values. 3 is understand your equity analysis, determine your net proceeds. And 4 is make sure you have a tax liability assessment. So make sure at the end of the day, when you sell, what is your net after tax, right? Not before tax. Do a complete portfolio analysis, an assessment to understand the value of all your assets and what you could do with them. What we're finding is a lot of what we're experiencing now is the greatest transition of wealth in America. And it's happening because baby boomers' parents are passing on, and it's coming down to the baby boomers. And what's happened though is the baby boomers haven't been trained what to do with it. They're not trained how to benefit your next generation. And that's what we do. We go out and train folks on what options do you have with your wealth, right? Doing asset performance tests to understand the financial return on your assets. Repair and renovation analysis. If you're thinking of selling, don't do anything until we take a look at it because we might be able to help you save money. And instead of you having to do the picking everything out and fixing it up, we could probably help with that, right? Because we do it every day. Generational wealth building and teaching the next generation. We've had a lot of our clients say, hey, can you talk to my kids and my grandkids? And the answer is yes. And we can teach them how to build wealth and help them understand that time is your friend, right? It can help you. Generational wealth building, teaching the next, we talked about that. Compounding value chart, and then Family Feud prevention plan, I got to tell you, at least once a week or maybe more than that, I go into a family situation where nobody likes each other. So, frankly, it happens. And we have to help people understand what's best for everybody. Yeah. And it's not easy. We're pretty good at it. We've helped save a lot of folks and a lot of families' lives by helping them understand a better approach to their properties. So what's a real estate planner? Well, a real estate planner thinks like a consultant and acts like a shepherd. Focuses all of our activities on the needs of the family as it builds and transfers generational wealth. People were asking me, what is this thing that you're doing? This is what we do. We help people build and transfer wealth. And because most of people's wealth is in your real estate, if you think about it. That's the end of our presentation. Any questions, ahas?